Thanks very much, Debbie, and thanks very much everyone for coming along today, and in particular to Paula. You sure know how to draw a crowd, Paula. Great work. Can I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we stand, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. Can I thank Richard Wally for his welcome to country. Can I also acknowledge all of the other distinguished guests here today, in particular James Caruso, the Acting Ambassador from the United States, Melinda Salento, Chief Executive Officer of CEDA, Paula Rogers, State Director of CEDA, all of the Consular Corps representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and of course my ministerial and parliamentary colleagues who will be wowing you with their speeches during the course of the afternoon. I am very, very fortunate to have such talented, incredibly committed, good people serving in the Cabinet, and you'll see that during the course of their presentations. Now, I have great news up front. The Australian Bureau of Statistics handed down the September quarter results, and we have state final demand growing for the second quarter by 0.9%, and that's the first time since 2013 that state final demand, which is the domestic economy, has grown for 2 consecutive quarters. So that is terrific news for all of those businesses, in particular small and medium-sized enterprises out there that are not part of the export economy but rely upon the confidence of West Australians. And so this is a terrific day for all those businesses, and I think it shows that indeed Western Australia's economy has turned the corner from what has been a difficult period. Now, CEDA asked me to speak about my vision for Western Australia. And I spoke to Paula last week. She said be free-ranging, so I will. But in doing so, and bear in mind the US Charge d'Affaires is here, I was thinking about George Bush Sr. George Bush Sr. in 1988, when he was running for president, he was an accomplished person. He had been a war hero, he had been a successful businessman, he'd been a congressman, director of the CIA. He rose to become vice president to Ronald Reagan, and then he was running for president. But people weren't really aware of what he stood for. He was seen as an insider, but people didn't know what he stood for. He was asked about this, about what do you stand, what's your vision? His response, the vision thing. Like it was something out of a Stephen King novel that had been pursuing him around the corridors of Washington. The vision thing was there. And he had difficulty answering the question what his vision was for the United States were he elected president. He ended up winning the '88 election against the Democratic candidate Michael Dukakis, who was slightly hapless. But in 1992, against Bill Clinton, he lost. Bill Clinton had far more success in explaining his vision for the United States. And part of it was his personal story. Clinton was an outsider, now regarded as the ultimate insider, but he was an outsider. He was a battler. He was someone who fought his way up from a deprived background, and he'd become governor of a relatively obscure state through academic excellence, hard work and the like. And then he rose to the presidency, and one of the things that inspired enormous amounts of Americans was his personal story, that he represented what they represent. His thinking was their thinking. It'd be fair to say, I think, bear in mind the ambassadors here, that America could do with a Bill Clinton or even a George Bush Sr. today. In my view, America could even do with a George Bush Jr. Today, who was positively brilliant and full of oratorical genius compared to some other politicians around the place. My vision for Western Australia is this. I want us to be a stronger state and a fairer state. I want to give back to the state that has given me everything. I want to make sure that whatever your background or your worth, you can rise to do whatever your talents and abilities allow you to do. I want all West Australians, even outsiders like me, to have every opportunity in life and to be the best they can be in our state. I want every West Australian to share in some way in our state's success and good fortune in a wide array, a diverse array of industries. I want a society and a government in which we plan for the next 100 years, not for the next term. I'm a strong believer that we have to work with business to achieve outcomes. Investment, jobs, technological advancement and the like, always have, always will. As a state, our economic fundamentals are very sound. Our state government's financial fundamentals are not sound. Whilst our economic fundamentals are sound, we still need to work towards diversifying our state's economy. I'm a strong supporter of mining, oil and gas and agriculture, but we need to be more than just those industries. Without those industries, our state's and our nation's economy would be in trouble. But Western Australia needs to be more than just those industries, because otherwise we are so subject to commodity pricing and also technology driving blue-collar jobs in particular out of mining and oil and gas. Since our election victory, we've been working hard on carrying out that agenda, keeping mining, oil and gas strong, agriculture strong, but working to broaden and diversify our state's economy. I took on the state development portfolio especially so that I could send the message that we want to make sure jobs, strong employment growth is important to our government. We created new portfolios: jobs and trade, prevention of family and domestic violence, defence issues, Asian engagement and ICT, portfolios that hadn't existed before. Some of you may recall that exactly a year ago, in my pre-election CEDA address, before a crowd not quite as big as this one, I made a number of commitments. I committed to reducing the number of government agencies by 20%. Within 2 months of coming to office, we reduced the number of government departments by 40%, from 41 down to 25. Stronger, more robust, coordinated government focused on delivering outcomes and not having internal silos and turf wars. We now have far more rational and sensible government in Western Australia, in my view. Since our election, we've appointed the state's first Minister for Defence Issues, we've created Defence West, and we now have a defence advocate in Canberra seeking some of those billions of dollars of work for Western Australia. We've introduced into Parliament our landmark Jobs Bill, which is all about making sure that West Australian small and medium-sized enterprises have the best opportunities possible to win government work. Government issues billions upon billions of dollars of contracts in Western Australia each and every year. We want to make sure that our local businesses are supported by government policy in particular, but also by government support to win those government contracts and create jobs for our citizens in the same way that other states do. Defence West, Jobs Bill, things other states have done that have worked, we're now putting in place in Western Australia. Last month, I led a delegation to China and Japan, full of representatives from tourism and the higher education sector, seeking more tourists, direct flights, more students, in particular from China, into the West Australian marketplace. We've set up a task force to start the process of building a new modern port in Kwinana. We've established the Planning Reform Task Force to speed building and construction and planning approvals. On the economic reform front, we've announced our plans to deregulate the taxi industry, to boost competition and provide fairness across the entire industry. We are allowing access to the North-West interconnected system, put out the draft policy to allow for that. We've also put in place the holy grail of electricity pricing, a fixed charge on everyone's bill to ensure that everyone helps pay for the poles and wires. We're moving to diversify and reform pastoral lands across Western Australia to allow for a broadening of the industry base of pastoral properties into tourism and even conservation. We're reforming local government to remove red tape and duplication. We've secured federal support for our road and rail program, our MetroNet program, with the biggest funding package from the Commonwealth Government ever towards Western Australia, that's resulting in road and rail projects, not just in the city, but across the regional Western Australia as well. We've now got certain funding for tourism. Tourism marketing events now has certain funding into the long-term future, and we've managed to get a cruise liner homeported in Fremantle. Next year, I expect to announce Infrastructure WA and the unsolicited bids process to enable certainty and rationality in the spend on infrastructure in Western Australia. Our first budget, handed down in September, had the lowest level of recurrent spend growth in memory. The lowest level of recurrent spend growth in memory. We put in place billions of dollars of budget repair measures, tighter wages policy, reduction in the senior public sector ranks, voluntary redundancies, and we've restrained unnecessary spending. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough for ministers. See problems, want to use government resources to fix them. It's tough when you can't do it. But we had to bring the budget back. We've got a plan to get the budget back to surplus by 2020 and start the process of getting the state's debt levels coming downwards. With responsible financial management and a state government with the right priorities, I'm pleased to say that business confidence is returning in Western Australia. I told you at the outset about the state's latest final demand figures, the domestic economy. The CCI Business Confidence Index has short-term confidence at a 3-year high. The NAB, a measure of confidence, has been positive throughout 2017 after being flat for at least the year prior to that. Up to 70% of West Australians, in fact 70% of West Australians, are confident about the economic future, that it will strengthen or at least remain the same over the medium term. We now have 1,365,900 West Australians employed, 2% higher than October last year, and we have the highest participation rate in employment of any state in Australia. The unemployment rate a year ago was 6.5%. Now it is 5.9% and trending downwards. We have the highest average weekly earnings of all the states. Western Australia has a lot to be proud of. We've done a lot of things well, but we need to continue to improve. We need to continue to reform and improve, diversify our economy, and we need to make sure that our public sector is responsive, it is effective, it is efficient, and it delivers for the people of the state. My view is that efficient and effective government is incredibly important to creating good opportunities for our citizens. We're Australians. We believe in fairness and opportunity for everyone. Government is a part of that. Good schools, good hospitals, a decent social safety net, looking for opportunities for investments to create jobs for our citizens. Government's a part of that. As Australians, I'm of the view... 5 minutes, OK. You can show everyone that sign. Yeah, there you go. Good advice. I'm about a quarter of the way through. So today, in our bid to ensure that we have efficient and effective government, I'm releasing the Service Priority Review. This is the culmination of 6 months' work by a national team led by Ian Rennie to ensure that we come up with the best way forward for government in WA. So we've already announced our reduction in government departments. We've already reduced the senior executive service by 100 people, generating savings for the state. What this report does is back some of the other things that we want to do. The introduction of performance-based pay for CEOs across the public sector, linked to government targets. So you actually have, for the first time ever in Western Australia, performance-based pay for senior people. And the government will actually have a list of targets that the government wants to achieve, where it's diversifying the economy, dealing with methamphetamines, dealing with Aboriginal disadvantage. All those important things are actually government targets that every public servant knows they're working towards. This report has 17 recommendations and 37 actions. They're designed to create systemic and long-lasting reforms. They show us a way to embrace technological change. They introduce whole-of-government targets to focus the work of government agencies. They embrace data sharing and privacy legislation. Western Australia is the only jurisdiction that doesn't have legislation that allows for data sharing across government and also protects privacy. It develops a whole-of-government procurement strategy to reduce costs, improve outcomes and ensure it's directed towards creating jobs here in Western Australia. It advances digital transformation of service delivery across Western Australia. We need to embrace it more than we have to date. I think we're actually coming last of all the states and territories when it comes to digital delivery, and we need to do better in that, and this report indicates that that's the way forward. So what we'll do, we've already announced that we support this report, we embrace its findings, and we will deliver it over the course of coming years. But I want to emphasise, public servants across Western Australia do a good job. We are a big state, one of the biggest jurisdictions in the world with some of the most remote places. Our public sector is very important to creating equality, opportunities, fairness, strength across our community. And I'd like to thank our public servants across the state for what they do. The Service Priority Review, this document, is about backing that but improving it and understanding there are ways that we can do things better and get better outcomes even than we get now. So we're committed to reform of the public sector to create those opportunities, to make sure it's efficient and effective, and this blueprint gives us a way forward. Can I thank CEDA for the opportunity to be here today? Can I thank everyone for coming along today? It is a terrific event, a large event. Ben White tells me his budget breakfast had 5 more people than this, but anyway, maybe if he wasn't speaking today, we would have had those 5 people. It is a terrific organisation, and I appreciate very much my and our government's engagement with the business community of Western Australia. Have a happy Christmas and a great New Year. Thanks very much.